Mike, what I got here, that's a Phil Simms 7 of 11 autographed part of the jersey. What will you trade me for it?
Aren't you supposed to just give it to me? Isn't that the whole point of the episode? Altruism?
No, never. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. Today we are talking about Season 5, Episode 25 in the cards. It is the penultimate episode of Season 5. We are getting into it. So much fun. Mike, how you doing, buddy? I know you are. You have a lot going on.
There's a lot happening, Keith. It's okay, but you know what? Even with that said, I still got the stream in this week. And nobody came to it, I should say. But
I watched.
It was a last minute. It was a last minute addition. I'm doing good. Things are good. Deep Space Nine is keeping me sane. It's so nice to visit. I want to tell a quick anecdote. My niece, who is, let's see, how old is she now? 12? I think she's 11 or 12. Came over last night, and we're enjoying a renaissance of our relationship. She was sort of, it took her about 10 years to warm up to me, but.
I mean, to be fair, it took me 15.
Yeah, but last night she asked to see my YouTube channel, and I said, okay, great. And we were watching it, and she said, well, do you ever watch the actual show? And I said, yeah. And I showed her the Patreon and beamed it up, and she said, oh, people like this? To which I had to be honest, and I said, I don't know, per se.
Yeah, I think that's up there with my mom's like, oh, did you mean for that to be funny?
Yeah. Anyway, how are you doing? How's things?
Things are pretty good. Things are, I am not buying a house. I already did. So I'm
nice.
not going through that stress. And luckily my job is the same thing every week. Every single week.
It's been a tough week for us Broadway friends.
It has been. We've lost a lot. It has been a tough week for some shows closing, some people leaving us, but yeah, in normal life, things are okay. But we'll talk more about all of that as we get there. All right, so let us talk first about your thoughts and feelings about last week's episode, Empok Nor. People had a lot of thoughts and feelings, so sit down, buckle up, give a stretch, maybe get a snack. Joshua Cronin says, I think this is a crazy cool episode. The feel of it isn't super Deep Space Nine or even Star Trek, so it stands out really well. Great story. I give it a strong 90 self-sealing stem bolts. Brian from Video Game Drive-By says that was the best cold open to the podcast ever. 100 friend-shooting stem bolts for Keith and Mike. Don't worry, I never thought y'all deleted stuff. I just assumed my talk about Eddington was involved, and it got deleted by good old Albert Go Rhythm. See what you did there. Mike is on point about what our door dashing is. We were wondering, door dashing with Brian's girlfriend. It's us making deliveries together for fun and spare cash. Oh, that's such a good idea. I'm of two minds about this episode. I love a good slasher horror, and having my boy Garrick be the antagonist is always a win, but I'm left with one annoying question in the back of my head. Why did the Cardassians not use the doped-up soldiers more often? They are clearly a good enough threat to stand alongside Dominion soldiers. Yes, I think because it was a failed experiment, the implication is they can't control them. Is that once they've gone sort of crazy zombie, that they're like, it's hard to be an effective soldier if you can't control your troops. Brian continues, I do love the way that this episode taps into war-based PTSD, and thankfully, we don't just pretend this episode never happened later. Part of me wishes this would have been a season 1 or 2 episode somehow. 75 red shirt hunting stem bolts. Would have been great in season 1 or 2. Keelan Kamor quickly points out this episode in OG Deep Space Nine fandom is called The Battle of Bashir's Boyfriends. Which it kind of is.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, if all of this is subtext about fighting for Bashir, Julian's like, ooh, tell me more. Harry Pothead says about our complaints about screw holes on the phasers. Screw holes are a fact of life, and it's time for people to stop acting like they are not. Screw holes and buttholes. I'm with you. They're a fact of life. Fact of life. I'd prefer them not be, but they are. I don't know where I'm going with that. But anyway.
But we don't need them. You could always glue them shut.
You could.
Although the backup wouldn't be worth it.
It would be the opposite, like reverse human centipede. It's not great.
Keith, do you hear that? You're right, you don't, because I forgot to put the space station behind us. So I'm going to work on that.
Oh no! I think the space station didn't want to be associated with that conversation. I think that's probably Paramount's like, we're going to let you get away with anything, but I don't want to be a part of that. Anyway, Harry Pothead says, great episode, 85 stem bolts. Kevin Miles says, I really like this episode. When I watch this episode, time seems to speed by. I get wrapped up in the story. I give this episode 90 self-sealing stem bolts. Keith, I also saw Dance of the Vampires. I liked it a lot. Most of the Broadway shows I saw was because Star Trek actors were in them. I can't believe, because I know some other people who saw Dance of the Vampires in the community, but I don't know I've ever met somebody like a normal person who saw that. It did not run for very long. It was a colossal flop, but I have been obsessed with it ever since it debuted. Renee's quite good. He does a patter, like an increasingly fast patter song. Very impressive work. But not Renee's first musical on Broadway. So he also did with the Huck Finn one.
Big River?
Big River. With John Goodman. A lot of good people in that.
Some would say he has Renee Auberge and Joie de Vivre. Oh.
That was Renee Unbearable. Oh. Wow. Hibernation Pod says mind-altering substances make you do crazy things. Those were the days. Garrick being in a great Garrick episode. Garrick being great in a great Garrick episode. 90 self-sealing stem bolts. YouTube viewer, as always, got a lot to say. I usually skip the rewatch on this episode when I'm marathoning Deep Space Nine, not because I don't like the episode, but because horror movies lose effectiveness with too many repeat viewings. It was fun to watch Mike jump. I disagree. Jillian and I are doing our annual rewatch of one of the 80s slasher series, and so we are chain eating Friday the 13th movies for the 19th time.
I've been doing the same because you made me put it up there, so I started watching.
You might as well, right?
I was watching, in fact, 2 nights ago I watched Freddy vs. Jason, and woo boy, did I forget how bad that one is.
Oh, well, I mean, it's supposed to be, but are you not watching in order?
I'm not watching in order, no. Have you watched Talk to Me yet? I put it up on the Plex as well.
No.
Oh, man, you gotta watch that, dude. You gotta watch it.
You gotta watch them in order, though. That's just wrong.
You gotta watch Talk to Me, and also I wanted to let you know,
immoral.
Keith, that Deadpool Wolverine is true HD now.
It's finally legit. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yep.
Great, awesome. But I gotta get through. We just watched the 4th one last night, and we rank them every year. It's a whole thing. Anyway, and the fact that it's predictable and terrible is kind of the fun.
Yeah, but it's not like bad as in B movie bad. That's why I didn't like that one as much. But I will tell you, the first 3 actually I quite enjoy.
The 3rd one is terrible.
Yeah, but it's like good terrible.
The second one is pretty good. The 4th one is pretty good.
I haven't watched the 4th one in quite a while.
It's fun. It's fun because I have rankings on effective kills, how many boobs, and is there any characters or whatever. It's a whole thing. It's one of the things we do during the holiday season. Spooky season. It's very important. Anyway, where were we? YouTube viewer continues. Recycling is good for the environment. MPOC Nord lets them use Deep Space Nine scenery. Indeed. Along those lines, they used a runabout to haul the parts because they were limited by the number of available sets. It's either a runabout or the Defiant, Voyager, Enterprise, or Klingon Bird of Prey. Garrett, that's fair. Didn't want to build a whole nother ship. Garrick does a lot of needling because he is a tailor. And tailors are all about needlework. Get it? I can make puns too. The theatrical release of Event Horizon was actually toned down for general audiences, especially in the scenes of the other dimension, which they hired porn actors and actual amputees to film. In the theatrical release, this was reduced to just a few seconds. The original director's cut is supposedly lost, which makes me sad because I would definitely watch that. This isn't the last time they have a dampening field to stop tricorders but not phasers. I prefer the term communication jamming to explain why the sensors are down, but weapons or not, it is not great sci-fi, not sci-fi enough apparently. Yeah, JD has some thoughts on that too. We'll get there. O'Brien often suffers, but he always survives. Part of his suffering is watching people under his command die. That's true. This what kind of is an O'Brien must suffer episode. I would not want to be an engineer on his team in foreign territory. Yeah. I like Mike's rewrite. I gave the Star Trek crew a free pass because they don't have a lot of experience directing slasher films. I think if Wes Craven directed a Star Trek episode, he'd make a lot of rookie mistakes for the utopian sci-fi genre. Fair. I agree. I don't normally nitpick things I don't like. I just write them off entirely. There are a lot of mini plot holes. I think this is endemic to horror films, which require protagonists to keep doing foolish things that put them in danger, and the antagonists have to keep doing foolish things to give the good guys a fighting chance. See Friday the 13th. But for a good slasher, your characters have to be inherently stupid and bad so that we are not bummed out by them getting murdered. We want to, because Jason is the hero. Mm-hmm. And we have like, here's our 10 dum-dums, and we're just going to watch them get hacked apart. That's the whole series. Anyway, onions have layers. Cardassians have layers. I get it. They both have layers. Good episode, not a great episode. 79 out of 100. Already sealed stem bolts. They are already sealed because they were pulled off Empok Nor for Deep Space Nine. JD says, please, I have called Mike out on some obvious ADHD a few times. We recognize each other talking about neurodiversity. Guess what? Just this week, in my real life, I met with a neurodivergent specialist. I'm in the family.
You getting the card, baby? You getting the card? The legit
card. I got the card.
Yeah.
And she was like, I hereby grant you the title and all the rights and privileges there within. So I'm in the family. Didn't know. Explains so much in my life. JD continues, Keith, it was species 8476309. The fact that the chief and the others all use standard Type 3 rifles, but the smallest guy in the team shows up with the biggest gun is amazing. Do not try to compare Cybertrucks to DeLoreans. John DeLorean was a brilliant genius cocaine addict with a wonderful vision. Elon is none of those things. I agree, except for possibly the cocaine.
Yeah.
The cocaine, let me be very clear. Elon is a garbage person. I don't know much about John DeLorean. But
you haven't watched any of the movies?
I know, but he's not. You realize the inventor of the DeLorean is not in any of the Back to the Future movies.
No, there's actually documentaries on John DeLorean. In fact, there's one with, it's a weird, like, pseudo-documentary where Alec Baldwin is playing DeLorean as it's being, like, as he's doing the recreations. It's bizarre, but it's legit. It's a legit
documentary.
Yeah, it's weird, but it's cool.
That sounds tremendously weird.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. O'Brien actually uses Spoonhead a couple of times. I thought he might have. It's done in an interesting way because you want to look at all that O'Brien has gone through with the Cardassians, even going back to Next Gen and one of his first big starring episodes. And you can understand why he's quick to cast them all in the same light, but at times, see him take a step back and regard the Cardassians with far more empathy than he needs to. It reminds me of George Takei, growing up in the American internment camps during World War II. He had every right to hate white people for what they did to him and his family, but he learned to be better than the people that imprisoned a child for being different. That's true. And I think, in a way, that this is the big arc that O'Brien has, starting back in Next Gen all the way through the end of Deep Space Nine. Speaking of horror films, it is the season. He says, how do you all feel about Hellraiser? Because Event Horizon was originally written as a sequel to Hellraiser? I did not know that.
I think, here's the thing. I think we did know that. I think that anecdote came up during Out of Practice.
Did it really?
Yeah, I remember us having a whole diatribe about Hellraiser and Event Horizon. Or my heavy use of drugs has just implanted a memory that didn't take place, but I remember us discussing Hellraiser.
Interesting. Well, I don't remember because I don't. To be fair, I don't remember what you say, but I also don't remember what I say.
In fact,
so
this is accurate because weekly, sometimes I get a chuckle out of our little Easter egg tag at the end of the credits, and I'll send it to Keith. Yeah. Literally the day that we recorded it. Yeah. And he generally, I'd say 80% of the time, maybe more, has no recollection of said quip.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. It's coming out. Just it's a stream of consciousness. What is it? What does it Trump call it? I'm weaving.
The tapestry of a plan.
I have plans of a plan. I have ideas of a plan. Anyway, continuing the Hellraiser, which of course Hellraiser, the first one, starred Andrew Garrick Robinson. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Do you like the Hellraiser series?
They're a little too actual horror movie for me. I prefer my horror movies a little more campy and slashery. Yeah.
But you realize another giant Deep Space Nine person is a Hellraiser. Is a lead in a Hellraiser movie. Terry Farrell is the lead of Hellraiser 3. So we should definitely, I mean they're bleak, right? And they're a little upsetting. That said, I've seen all of them. I've worked my way through the entire series, and but the Andrew Robinson one, woof, that is some grim stuff. Anyway. JD continues, blue goo is absolutely how Garrick got the drug. It was the blue goo. He got it on his hand. Later, we see him itching his hand where he touched the goo. Then he's itching the arm later as it moved up. We see him scratching his shoulder and neck area of that arm just before he goes mental. I'm not sure why Keith didn't catch that. But if you watch Mike's watch-along, you'll see exactly why Mike didn't catch any of that. I bet Mike can't tell the difference between a coil spanner and a flux capacitor despite it being right on screen. I think, Mike, you are being called out for your divided attention during your watch-alongs.
Well, they sometimes happen
during work.
During work, B, during drug time at night, or like a little glass of wine, perhaps, or I multitask.
Yeah. Well, but next week, we got to do it together, and we got to eyes forward, sir. Eyes. Look, you're going to be happy. Both of them, sir. Both of those eyes. It's just like, okay, I'm staring at the camera.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh my god. All right. All right, so here's what JD says about the dampening field. The dampening field is only around the infirmary. The tricorders work in other areas, just not there. That explains. I guess he says, I guess they didn't want outsiders scanning the equipment and finding out about the scary baddies. That actually makes sense. So it's just around them. All right, thank you. You fixed a wormhole for me. You skipped past my favorite part. O'Brien says that's not the face of a tailor, and Garrick replies, I'm not a tailor. Then leaves a long pause before saying, at least not for now. I have always felt that in that moment we are for the first time seeing the absolute real Garrick, not the tailor facade that he has maintained for years. We are getting a look into what he has always wanted, dreamed of, and been, just for now. Interesting. What's interesting about Garrick's performance is Garrick in Act 1 is Garrick that has respect and almost admiration for the Chief and his career, but because of the drug, it flips that admiration for War Hero into being how he wants to test the War Hero and see if he is better than O'Brien. It's such an interesting line between admiration and abhorration. Nice. And I feel like it's kind of neat looking at. This one is a 90 self-stealing stem bolts for me.
I mean, I guess there's a good point to that. There's 2 points to that I really appreciate that I guess we didn't highlight as well last week. Is one, true, Garrick at all times has some sort of restraint upon him, right? Either he's playing a part or he's trying to appear less than he is in some sort of a way, more civil, more restrained, whatever it is. He's got some sort of seatbelt holding him in. And for that brief moment, there were no seatbelts. He was totally unleashed and able to sort of froth at the mouth and go for it. And that, I imagine, felt some freeing in some sort of way.
I would imagine.
2, it's sort of like when you play with your food, and he's often doing that, right? Or let's say you're a Keith and you're very good at ping pong, and when you play with people, you tend to maybe not go all out because you don't want to just steamroll people. That's no fun. So you kind of play with your food a little bit to make it competitive. So it's nice when someone comes over who is of equal or greater skill, and you can really let loose.
You can go full out. Yeah, that's like me and my brother are very evenly matched. It's really fun that way. But usually when I start out playing ping pong, I play left-handed until I get a sense of how good they are.
Smart.
And then I switch. So there you go. So this leaves us with one last important thing to do. And this is a question from Andrew Hayes. And it is, I think, a very appropriate one. And that is, can you really call Mike a newbie now?
New or not?
So that is the question. Don't worry about it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You figured it out?
Did you just update the page, the picture right now?
I did.
Yeah. All right.
I did. So anyway, I think it's a really interesting question for all of us. Is because I've really, why do we call you a noob? It's on in our screening room. We still call you a noob, and I don't know, internet people watching. I need you to, in your comments below, or even if you just want to comment this along, has Mike reached the status of no longer Star Trek noob? Now that we are this far
Definitely not noob. I wouldn't call myself an expert, right? Like, if you give me a pop quiz, I'm going to probably do very poorly on it.
If I gave you a pop quiz about this episode, you'd do poorly.
That is accurate. But if you go by just man hours, I must have reached some sort of status.
That's true. Well, we need a new status for Mike. So everybody,
definitely not
everybody
cadet
type
anymore.
noob
Could I
or
be
not.
ensign?
Oh, so much better. Everybody, in your comments, nominate Mike for a rank in Star Trek fandom.
This is going to go a direction I don't like.
No. I like this. No, everybody give Mike a rank, and then maybe once a season we can ask, has Mike done enough to be promoted from the rank?
This will be the first full series I've watched, and we've cranked through a bunch of the movies, so I feel like I'm on my way.
You're getting there. I mean, you've done podcasts on 2 different Star Trek shows, like almost 200 episodes of Toys. Like, it's something.
It's not nothing.
All right.
I will tell you this, and this is an insane thing to say. I'm much more a Star Trek guy than a Star Wars guy. It has flopped for me.
Yeah. Well, I think you're in good company listening to this.
Is it flippy and a floppy? You know what I mean?
Flippy and a floppy. Yeah, it's entertainment versus enterbrainment.
Some would say I've done my own pip and pop.
There it is. All right, let us please exit this segment and talk about Deep Space Nine, Season 5, Episode 25, In the Cards, which aired on June 9th, 1997. Took a couple weeks off before we got here. The top song, I'll Be Missing You, the Faith Evans and Puff Daddy version, who we will not be missing this week.
So basically, the 90s are out for us at this point.
I mean, good Lord.
Yeah. Poor Faith Evans somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, I guess she gets all the residuals for that song.
For a lot of people. I think, luckily, we are 2 of the Hollywood elites that has not actually been to any of Puff Daddy's parties. So, I assume I haven't.
I have not. No. I would say no. You know what? I've got a few jokes, and I'm not going to say them. So,
because I don't let you edit.
yeah. Oh, what has become of me?
Indeed. The top movie, oddly entertaining, Con Air was the top movie. In the intervening 2 weeks that we missed The Lost World, the Jurassic Park 2. But you know what we didn't miss? What was on TV tonight, Mike?
We didn't miss it, Keith. A lot of stuff, but I will say that we had this was one of the first weeks where Mad TV went prime time. Mad TV prime time. Yes. So that was on Fox at 8 o'clock, followed by, here's one, The Ruby Wax Show.
The Ruby what is that?
I don't know. I was hoping you would know. This is one of those shows where you're like, what the what? The Ruby Wax Show. It looks like it was a series, a talk show. It was Ruby Wax was either a character or a person who was doing a show. This was at 8:30 p.m. and tonight's guests were Goldie Hawn, Pamela Lee, and Bette Midler.
Wow, Ruby Wax sounds like a Mad TV character.
Yeah.
Like
but
Jiminy
most
Glick.
importantly, Keith, ABC had a special from 8 to 9, and it was Disney World's 25th anniversary. I am not ashamed to say that I am a Disney World fanatic. I've been to Disney World a handful of times, and every time it's magical and special. Love me some Disney World. Prefer it to the land.
Okay, well, there you go. Yeah, Ruby Wax is a British actress and comedian.
I guess they just gave her a shot over on Fox.
She is a mental health campaigner, classically trained actress, was in the Royal Shakespeare Company for 5 years, and starred in the ITV sitcoms Girl on Top. Oh, okay. Well, now you know. The more you know. All right, this episode... Oh, what was Voyager doing? In the off-season. So they are prepping for Season 4 after their banger of a season finale. This episode... Did you catch who directed this episode, Mike?
I didn't.
Michael Dorn!
Hey!
This was the first thing he ever directed. I thought he did a fantastic job. He will do 2 more Deep Space Nine episodes and 1 episode of Enterprise. It has a teleplay by Ronald D. Moore, with a story by Truly Barr Clark and Scott J. Neal. These are their only IMDb credits, so I believe this must have been a pitch. Which means I think it's time to pitch it to... Now, Keith, waste your time.
With what?
With trivial trivia.
Ruby Wax!
Ruby Wax. You want that smooth feeling but a little sparkle? Ruby Wax.
It's that or Diddy Lube.
No.
You had to pick. If you had to pick.
No. Did he make that joke? Yup. Should he have? Nope. All right. Wow. The Willie Mays baseball card featured in this episode is from the 1951 Bowman baseball set with a value of $4,000 as of 2014. I, of course, wanted, as a card collector myself, I had to look it up and see what it is. And today, the value is a lot condition based, right?
Always.
Because you definitely want to get this one graded. So if it's like a PSA 3 or 4, it's about $5,000, up to about $75,000 at like PSA 8. If it were actually mint, like they say it on the episode, it's probably pushing $500,000. So pretty valuable card out there. So Jake quotes Captain Picard from First Contact when he says, we work to better ourselves and the rest of humanity. Ronald D. Moore, who worked on this episode as well as First Contact, commented, I take great glee in mocking my own work. Some of the events from Rapture are referenced in this episode, specifically Sisko's insistence that Bajor should not join the Federation yet. According to Kai Winn, it has been 6 months since the events of Rapture. So perhaps we are seeing the beginnings of why he felt that way, which will be interesting. So in the original version of the teleplay, Elias Geiger was trying to resurrect his dead wife, using her ear to genetically recreate her. Which my first thought on that was actually what I read in the book. They realized that was a bad idea for the same reason I thought it was going to be, because this kind of only works if he's a buffoon.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's trying to resurrect his dead wife, then we're going to be rooting for him. And it sort of undercuts what you're trying to say about this character. So in the original I already said that. So the computer system that Geiger uses is the same model from the USS Excelsior and the USS Enterprise A in Star Trek VI. So they reused one of the console gizmos there. When Weyoun learns that Dr. Geiger is working on a way to become immortal, he replies, "Oh, really? I have a background in, shall we say, creative genetics." This may be a reference to the actor Jeffrey Combs' leading role in the cult film The Reanimator, but also might be a reference to the fact that Weyouns are clones and thus, in a sense, are immortal. You want to know who has truly reached immortality in our hearts?
That would be our patrons, Keith. We'd like to thank them this week, every week.
Oh crap, I didn't update it.
And forevermore. And I first am going to talk to you about our Hall of Fame. Ben, by the time we go back to the other slide, it will have been corrected.
Oh, it's going to take longer than that, but well...
Well, that's, the patrons in the Hall of Fame, Keith, deserve a slow read. They are those who have continued to go above and beyond. They are known as Casey Clark, Brian Kaufman, Jason Moe, Joshua Cronin, the Mysterious Anne, and the Mysterious Walter, along with the entire Mysterious family, Andrew Hayes, Worf's Boot Shivs, Colin Dagan, Jennifer Massanova, who I'm sure has no idea that she is still being thanked.
She's now... Well, I said immortal, right?
Yeah, that's right. She's still alive in our hearts. I mean, in real life as well, I'm sure. Hopefully. Cloud Lover 69, Jorge Novoa,
dark.
Charles Babbage, Brian Kim. I'm still swooning and Weyouning. Charles Babbage, Bryant Kimball Beersock, Frank Rinch, Kevin Miles, JD. Of course, JD is also known as JD Makes on YouTube. Check him out. CRM Productions. These folks have given and continue to give, and the channel is forever in their debt. Of course. Did we do it?
Almost.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna start.
No, just start from the bottom and work your way up.
Okay, so yeah, Andreas Eriksson, Wyatt Eldridge, Lutz Kremer, Bolian for Soup, another great Bolian in this episode, Kevin Miles, Joshua Cronin, Pat, Frank, Chris, Colin, JD, Scott, Lost Emu, who's found their place here, Odo's Bucket, Brian from the Video Game Drive-By, Miri. She tried to join Miri, I keep gendering, I'm not sure. Miri, who they tried to join the stream, but we were having some technical difficulties. But I saw it and I appreciated it. Yeah, I don't know whose end it was on, but thank you for giving it a go. Hibernation Pod, James, YouTube viewer, Nicolay, CRM, Carl, Anton, Harry Bothead, Worf's Big Old Boot Shivs, and the Mysterious Alan, Andrew Hayes, Merritt Neath, Joshua Cronin, and then the top tier, these people we love, we appreciate, couldn't do it without them. Bryant Kimball Beersock, Peter Bank, Frank Rinch, Quarks Bar, Yamba, Ryan Chesley, and Andre. Thank you so much for joining the team. You can be part of that same enclave at patreon.com/KNM.
Ah, yes. And next week, we will be welcoming somebody new to our Patron Hall of Fame. So we have some new inductees that we'll have to do the ceremony next week. Okay, so there we go. I think it is time to introduce our guest stars. Excuse me, which include Jeffrey Combs back as Weyoun in one of my favorite Weyoun appearances. Elias Geiger, Aaron Eisenberg as Nod, Chase Masterton as Lita, and Louise Fletcher as Kai Winn. Let's go into our screening room.
Oh man, it never. He just falls completely out of any sort of musical.
It's really good to let it breathe once
Yeah, to
or
really
twice.
just soak it in here and there.
Just soak it in. Exactly. All right. In the cards. I'm excited. So, at the beginning, our heroes are having dinner in Sisko's quarters, while Jake and Nog help serve. But everybody is crazy depressed. At least 3 Federation ships have disappeared along the border between the Federation and now Dominion space. Bashir is frustrated with Starfleet for not taking more actions against the Dominion. Odo has called off a vacation because people are stealing weapons and food rations due to war anxiety. It's the worst it's been since the Cardassians were forced to abandon the station. Everybody goes home miserable. Sisko tells Jake and Nog to go home too because he wants to be alone. So alone that he doesn't even want help with the dishes. That's a very dark place. Mm-hmm. Then he gets a message. Kai Winn is coming tomorrow and wants to meet. So we are going from bleak to flat horrible for poor Sisko. So Jake and Nog go to Quarks to discuss... Well, before we get into that, I think there's some really good anxiety building, not for this episode, but for the world in general. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That the specter of war is getting stronger, and people, we're going to reference a few times in this episode, people are leaving the station. Mm-hmm. There's frustration about what, the Federation isn't taking a harder line. So the weight of all of this is, because we had like anxiety about the Dominion, like what's going to happen, who are they, what's their deal happening, and now it's just flat, like we're all preparing for war.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a thing. So Jake and Nog go to Quark to discuss. Jake says, "Did you see how my dad was? He's trying to hide it, but I could tell he's really depressed. He's not the only one. Look around. There's something in the air. People are scared." "Yeah, but my dad's usually the one who tries to lift everyone's spirits. I mean, people go to him for encouragement. Where does he go when he's depressed? Who lifts his spirits?" Interesting idea, because when you're the leader, when you're the president, when you're whatever, you're kind of isolated. Mm-hmm. So in Act 1, Jake's first problem is he So Quark arrives and invites them to come to his auction of some random stuff the Bajorans collected from an abandoned freighter. Nog is unimpressed when he reads out the items, but Jake keys on one immediately. A mint condition Willie Mays rookie card. This is how he's going to cheer up his dad. He's going to get the card. How hard can that be? So, now in Act 1, Jake's first problem is he's no money whatsoever. The humans are past that. So he guilts Nog into giving up his money because he owes Ben for getting him into Starfleet. Very effectively. I think The Rock is pretty funny in this whole episode.
JD was commenting on the watch along that, maybe it was JD? Someone, I apologize if I've misattributed, but that they've done the math, and basically it works out to Nog has about $10,000 savings.
That's pretty good.
It's not bad.
I mean, I barely have that today, and I'm 40 something.
As it turns out, I could use Nog, a friend like Nog as well. Currently,
we all could. Could any chance your dad got somebody into the military? You can guilt him.
No, my dad is in a different line of work.
Yes, well, fair enough. So we find out that Nog has 5 bars of latinum. Like I said, it's his life savings. We then see a Bajoran ship docking, and this can only mean one thing: Kai Winn. So Kira ushers the Kai into Sisko's office, and she is immediately dismissive of Kira. "Thank you, child. You can leave us." Ooh.
I'm going to go ahead and say it now. We are clearly having a little bit of technical difficulties with Keith. You are popping in and out here and there. It's nothing major, but for those of you who are pulling their hair out at home, it is recognizable. I just don't feel like dealing with it.
Oh,
it's not terrible. It's okay.
It's not all right. Well, let me.
You know what it is? It's because the Meshcast servers are backed up.
Oh, Too many people are doing this.
Yeah, it used to be like this program nobody used. Now they're like all full.
Yeah,
Keith,
well,
we're heading headlong into the time where we're gonna have to purchase a piece of software to do this.
no,
We're getting there. We're getting there.
our coffers.
I know.
Anyway, so yeah, I swear I'm still here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here with all of my heart. So Winn and Sisko go for a walk, and they note that a lot of people have left Deep Space Nine. And she tells Sisko what's up. She has been asked to a meeting with the Dominion. And she says this is a very delicate moment for Bajor. The conflict between the Federation and the Dominion could escalate into open warfare at any moment. A misstep now could result in the destruction of our world. For that reason, it's imperative that everyone put aside their personal feelings and work together for the greater good of Bajor. And Sisko says, for once, I find myself in complete agreement with you. You have my word on that. I will do whatever it takes to safeguard Bajor. Then there's one line here that they cut from the script. And he says, and as for our personal feelings towards each other, I consider that all to be in the past. I'm glad they cut that. You don't ever want to cut tension. You don't ever want to remove that. It's also not true. So we arrive at the auction, and the card is unfortunately part of a multi-item auction, which I wonder in actual auctions when you have multiple items that are sort of unrelated to each other. My first instinct would be to list them separately, right? Because I would imagine you'd get more. But I can also see the rationale for, like...
If they think these are just sort of like space junk, you know what I mean? Because baseball isn't particularly interesting to anybody, so maybe they're trying to lump them together to increase value.
Well, yeah, I wonder. I don't know anything about auctions, so I wouldn't know. But it is interesting. I'd certainly, I see the football card in the auction. It piqued my interest. So they do the auction. Jake and Og bid their way up, but then they are completely blown out of water by this fastidious dude who bids way more than they have. No card for you. Also outbidding a Bajoran Bedek, which will pay off later. So in Act 2...
But wait, Keith.
Yeah.
This just in.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, Jake. There's... Coming in, apparently this scene might have been cut, but there was another card for auction.
What? Oh.
It was a rookie Keith Varney, but it's only $1.25, $3.25. I mean, that's a steal.
Did you do that ahead of time?
Yeah.
As busy as you are.
Yeah.
As unconscionably busy as you are.
Okay.
You took the time to do it.
I think we're going to let it sit up there for a little while.
I think we should.
Yeah.
Not a good baseball player.
It's quite a steep discount.
I do, and no inferences here, you pervs. I am a switch hitter.
I thought I was prepared for anything you were going to say.
I legitimately can bat both sides.
That's kind of cool. That is wild to me that anybody can do that. I'm so predominantly right-handed that I can't even conceive of it.
I'm so predominantly incompetent at so many things, but I am fairly ambidextrous.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because I can legit play ping pong left-handed too.
Yeah, I can a little bit. I definitely can't throw a football with my left hand.
I can do that too.
Without looking really dumb. Yeah,
well, anyway, that's the weirdest brag that's ever happened. But the only time I've ever played an organized baseball after, like, before Little League, Farm League, before Little League, I did play for the Avenue Q team in the Broadway Show League for a little bit. That was really fun. I was so much thinner then. My jersey would
really
fit over my left leg.
That's softball. That's different.
Softball, but it was cool. All right. Anyway, I should get that printed. I feel like that should be on the shelf behind me.
I'll work on it. Yeah, I'll send you the PDF.
Okay, great. Yeah. I like that you chose sort of a huskier player, too. It actually feels like it could be me.
Yeah, just that's a hefty dose of AI in there.
It's excellent work.
Yeah.
It's excellent work. All right. To see the robots are going to be good for us.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. That took me. I was not expecting that. So in Act 2, Nog thinks it's over and wants to find another way to cheer up Ben. But Jake knows this card is Kismet. It's destiny. He talks Nog into not giving up. They arrive at the end of the auction, and we see that Morn has won an oil painting of a bullfighter. Hold that thought. They chase down the guy who actually won their auction, but he's not interested. He seems to be named after the guy who designed the alien from Alien, Geiger, the absolutely batshit but brilliant artist who created that whole world, or possibly Hans Geiger, the German scientist who invented the Geiger counter. Yeah, the internet says, the Geiger, the alien guy. I think it's Geiger, the scientist. But either way, some amalgamation of the two of them makes sense. Speaking of amalgamations, this guy is giving off extremely strong Raul Esparza vibes.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, I had another one. Oh man, what's the guy's name? I can't think of it. Forget it. Moving forward.
Okay. Well, I looked it up, and I am not the only one who is absolutely aghast at how similar he is to Raul Esparza. There are multiple Instagram accounts about this guy and Raul Esparza.
He kind of gives me vibes too of the dude. I can't remember his name. The guy who does Homer Simpson.
Dan Castaneda.
Castaneda. Yeah, he gives me a little bit of him there too. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. So he says, "Listen to me. I haven't done anything wrong, and I won't be hounded by you or your soulless minions of orthodoxy. I haven't broken any laws except perhaps the laws of nature. So stay away from me." Soulless minions of orthodoxy is something that has always stuck with Star Trek fans. It's hilarious. The writing of this episode is just Ronald D. Moore. Just the comedy writing is so good.
It's very good. In fact, that was kind of one of my big things at the end. Is the specifically the dialogue between Jake and Nog. It's the quippiness. It simmers. The pace is great. It's real good.
I'll save my thoughts for the end. But Meanwhile, Weyoun arrives on the station. Hooray. He says, "Captain Sisko, I can't tell you how happy I am to see you again." I wish I could say the same. "Oh, how delightful. You feel comfortable enough around me to make jokes. I'm so pleased our relationship is evolving beyond the stale adversarial stage." It's not. And before you twist that into a compliment, let me be blunt. I don't like the Dominion, I don't like what it stands for, and I don't like you. So let's dispense with the hollow pleasantries and just stick to business. It pains me to hear you say that, Captain. You see, I really like Deep Space Nine, and I like you. And after this meeting with Kai Winn, I think you and I will be seeing a lot more of each other. This is where, Jeffrey Combs is now, really hitting a stride with Weyoun, that every single word that comes out of his mouth is like a symphony of... It's not quite obsequious, it's something, but so entertaining.
It's interesting because we talked about Garrick last week and how the freedom that comes with being unchained, and because of the might or the perceived might of the Dominion, their consigliere, which I guess is ostensibly what Weyoun is, operates with unchecked freedom, right? So he can enjoy the way he turns a phrase or intimidates, or it's fun to be able to play in those without those restraints.
Yeah, and it's like the middle manager who has been given too much power and is really getting off on that, and He's such a pompous little poop, but in such a delightful way. So, then Nog comes up to Jake. He's got good news. Geiger, I forget what this Geiger or Geiger, has agreed to talk to them and negotiate. Geiger. For the card. They arrive at Geiger's quarters to find him in a room full of computers. He's a possibly mad scientist, but he says that since you are not, in fact, working for the Soulless Minions of Orthodoxy that have hounded my work and plagued my existence, I have decided to open negotiations regarding the sale of a mint condition 1951 Willie Mays rookie card without the original packaging or chewing gum. But he doesn't want Latinum. He wants a list of items, and the fetch quest has been triggered. Which, again, this is obviously a sequel to the self-sealing stem bolts episode for Jake and Nog, which I find delightful. But Nog says, you gotta tell us why before you do this. So you're not doing, not creating a bomb or something. And he says, very well, young man, let me ask you both a simple question. Do you want to die? No, not really, says Jake funnily. Of course you don't, so why should you? Why should any of us end up as putrefying corpses, wooden boxes stuck into the ground or vaporized into subatomic particles and vented into the cosmos like a bad case of gas? No reason I can think of. I had devoted my life to studying death, and you know what I found? Death is nothing more than the result of cellular boredom. Boredom? Think about it. The cells in your body have been doing the same job and the same dull, monotonous routine every day since you were conceived. Metabolize, divide. Who wouldn't get bored? Of course you would. So at some point the cells just say, that's it. And the unwary victims of cellular ennui are quite literally bored to death. Hilarious.
Amazing.
Such good writing. Cellular ennui. Like, I think if I'm like Ronald D. Moore and I come up with cellular ennui, I'm just high-fiving the universe.
I was saying that. I
point.
want a band t-shirt with the band's name is Cellular Ennui.
Oh, such a great idea.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Just and he performs it so well.
Well, the key to performing it is that you have to be all in, right? That's the key.
Yeah.
He has to believe it.
You have to be 100% bought it. It's great. Anyway, he's built a regeneration chamber that looks like a big egg. And you have to think Elon definitely has one of those eggs.
It's not that far off of our sort of pods of deprivation, or those sleep pods you see at the airport, or a modern day sort of sarcophagus. But you pay a lot of money to sit in the dark underwater, and they're like, oh, this is good for you.
Somewhere 20 floors below the ground, Elon and Aaron Rodgers are holding hands in one of those pods.
And they're like, I'm chilly.
So Jake and Nog decide he's crazy, but harmless, and the quest begins.
I love that they let us. They don't even try to pull the wool and be like, well, it's going to take a while for Jake and Nog to figure out that this is all wacky. No, I like that right away. They're like, he's out of his mind, but let's just play along. That's the fun part. Oh. So we're along for the fun of it from the beginning.
We're on a romp.
Yeah.
And it's great. So O'Brien has the first item they need. They trade doing an annoying job so he can kayak in exchange for a power gizmo. And did you know that the kayaking was set up on Next Gen?
I did not know that.
So,
wait, we did talk about him kayaking before, though.
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
But that started with Next Gen. The first time he separated his shoulder, it was Dr. Crusher, not Dr. Bashir, who helped him. But speaking of Dr. Bashir, he's next. And he wants them to retrieve his teddy from Lita in exchange for some goo. They sneak into Lita's quarters and steal it from her sleeping arms. To which I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
a lot of questions. But Nog being able to break into Lita's quarters while she's sleeping, he's a Ferengi. Of course he can. Why did she steal another man's teddy bear? to have your ex-boyfriend's childhood teddy bear, that's cold.
I couldn't even venture. I could fanfic something, but I don't got anything.
I don't know. It's weird. I think that
Is it more or less weird than like breaking into a woman's apartment and dealing with her bed stuff?
I mean, that's admittedly also weird. I think the only thing I can think of for Lita is that it's just a cultural significance. They don't have an equivalent of the teddy bear or the blankie on Bajor, so she does not understand what that means to Bashir. But anyway, I think it's cute. I still have my blanket.
My brother has his Snoopy that is now almost 50 years old.
Yeah.
It is ratty. It's been through some major surgeries, but it's still there.
Oh, yeah. Well, the blanket I have is basically just like a pile of strands that Charlie 1 is the one who really tore that up into shreds, but he was obsessed with it more than I was. Anyway, then Winn goes to Sisko to explain what the Dominion wants. The Dominion wants to sign a non-aggression treaty with Bajor. Very interesting. She asks if the Federation can guarantee that no Dominion member will step foot on Bajor. I.e., so why shouldn't we sign? The Federation is not going to sacrifice all else to protect them. You know, are you gonna choose us over Earth, over Vulcan, over all those things? And Sisko knows he can't make that promise. And Winn says, I wouldn't believe you if you did. I think you can see my predicament. If we ally ourselves with the Federation against the Dominion, we risk becoming the first casualty of the next war. And Sisko says, and if you ally yourselves with the Dominion, you risk becoming the next conquered world. At most, an unhappy choice. So I've come to you, emissary. You've heard the voice of the prophets. You've been sent here to guide us through troubled times. Tell me what to do, and I will do it. How do I save Bajor? And I think she's genuinely asking here.
Me too, and that's funny because I was getting some, we can read it next week, I was getting some pushback on her motivations or just sort of her general vibe on the Patreon page where I posted the watch along. We'll read those next week. Because what I think is great about Louise Fletcher's performance here is that though we have clearly set her up as a mustache twirly bad guy, she also has a lot of nuance. I do believe she is devout in her reverence of the prophets, and B, I do believe she loves Bajor. Now, does she love her? Does she value herself above those things? I waffle on that, right?
Yeah.
But I do think there is as many times as she's had an ulterior motive. This time, I believe her sincerity. Now, I don't know if that means I'm being set up as a mark for future ramifications, or if that's legit here. But that was my feeling as well.
Yeah, no, and I think that is sort of the heart of Deep Space Nine, right? In our villains, there is light. In our heroes, there is dark.
One ramification also that's not really explored, but I was thinking about is that, yes, there are bigger fish to fry, right? The Dominion is a universal threat. However, they also seem to have an alliance / control of Cardassia. Cardassia having been your previous occupiers, maybe it's not a bad idea. Maybe you're kind of guaranteeing another piece. If you're both on the side of the Dominion, then maybe you've also kind of you protect Bajor on that side too. So there's value here.
Well, it's tough. She is indeed, or Bajor is indeed in a really tough situation here.
And Ben is too, because Ben finds himself trying to kind of lobby for the Federation, even though there are some problems with the way they're handling the scenario.
Well, and the truth is, nobody can really protect them. Mm-hmm. And I think that is so. But if they align with the Dominion, like Cardassia did, then the Dominion is in charge of them. Mm-hmm. And so, and they're basically a new occupying. You know, you can become an occupied force by force, or by treaty, but it's going to happen either way.
Well, it's hard for me to not just draw this parallel. It's sort of like, because inherent in a lot of this is also trust, right? Now, maybe the Federation can't offer you that ubiquitous protection, but at the same time, you have a better chance trusting them. It's the Dominion is an unknown quantity when it comes to trust. Much like I was watching that press conference with Zelensky and Trump the last week.
Yeah.
And you say all the right things, right? But at the same time, it's like, can you trust that word when previous actions, kind of spell out other end games?
Well, and it is, there are definitely parallels there, because it's like Bajor. Does Bajor join NATO? Is the Federation willing to let them join, essentially, as a non-Federation member? Because you're talking them into joining the EU, essentially, which is separate from joining NATO, and you're all in or you're not, and it's tough because they're right there on the front line. Why getting into NATO is hard. Because the obligations, at least if certain people are in charge of the country, are, we will fight for you as if you are one of us. And, the Federation might not be willing to do that. Sure. So Sisko's advice is, you want my advice, then this is it. Stall. You have to stall for time. Time for what? I don't know. But I do know that the moment of crisis isn't here yet. Until that moment arrives, we have to keep Bajor's options open. And she agrees to this plan. Meanwhile, Geiger is pleased with Jake and Nog's progress. He turns on his big machine, now that he has power for it, and it hums loudly. But we discover that Weyoun has quarters directly above, and now hears the equipment and is immediately suspicious and wants to know what's happening. Meanwhile, Nog listens to Worf's opera recordings in super loud so he can remaster it with his Ferengi ears, while Jake is punching up a speech for Kira. I thought is that funny? No. Really funny. That was a great Aaron Eisenberg moment there. Later, they've acquired the rest of the list. And Nog doesn't understand why they can't just tell everybody what they're up to, because they would probably just help without asking for favors. But Jake wants to guarantee that it is a secret for his father, so he's not telling any of the people he's doing favors for or getting favors from that he's trying to do this for the card. It's a great shot of Weyoun there. So they acquire the rest of the list and return to Geiger's quarters to discover, it is completely empty. So in Act 4, they go to Odo to find out what happened to Geiger, but Odo has no record of his ever being on the station. Very strange. Which leads me to believe that when Weyoun abducted Geiger, they hacked in and deleted all records of him ever being on the station.
It can't be that he snuck in, because it's hard to sneak in when you got a sarcophagus and such.
Sarcophagus?
Yeah, that's an Egyptian goose.
Sarcophagus!
So let's go ahead.
Now you have to AI. Give me a sarcophagus. Anyway, so Jake spots Kywin talking to a Vedic, who was also bidding on their lot. And he goes straight to conspiracy theory. And he says, don't you see? The Vedic was bidding on a lot because there was an old Bajoran Madala in it. He must have been working for Kai. But when they'd lost, the Kai got angry. And we all know she's dangerous when she's angry. What are you saying? That in order to get the Mandala, she kidnapped Geiger? It all makes sense now. Let me introduce you to a new human expression. We're going to beard the lion in its den, which leaves Nog in the immortal line, lions and geigers and bears.
Oh my.
Oh my. So silly. But delightful. So later, the Kai is about to leave, and Weyoun asks if she's going to recommend signing the non-aggression pact. She, of course, demurs. And in the stage direction, it says the Kai looks at him for a beat, then suddenly reaches out and grabs his ear, reading his paw without warning. Weyoun's smile freezes slightly, but she allows the touch as she gazes into his eyes. Winn recoils from him. Then, before she can get to her quarters, she's caught by Jake and Nog to accuse her of abducting Geiger.
That's funny.
We skip straight to being shouted at by Sisko. Ben is pissed! Under fire from his father, Jake still refuses to give up the truth. Now Nog is pissed because he's getting in trouble over this whole scheme. And this is when they're beamed directly onto the Jem'Hadar ship and held at gunpoint. Great escalation. So, in Act 5, Weyoun enters. Do you think I'm a fool? What is the nature of your relationship with Dr. Elias Geiger? Jake tells Weyoun the truth about the baseball card and the tasks for Geiger. And Weyoun, of course, do you really expect me to believe that everything you've been doing for the last 22 hours has been perfectly innocent? That it was merely a coincidence that Dr. Geiger was running experiments with highly charged polaric particles right below my quarters? I suppose there's also an innocent explanation for the secret meetings you've been having with virtually the entire senior staff of Deep Space Nine, or that Kai Winn met with you immediately after I left her. Hilarious. See, this is where like the construction of the episode is so well put together. To have that line, and all of it's true.
Mm-hmm.
All of it is true, and it is that innocent, and it is just. I admire when you construct such an intricate plot and then it pays off the way it does.
Yeah, what was the analogy you used early on? A fetch quest, which is good and accurate, but I think the episode itself is more to me a Rube Goldberg experiment.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
It's like Mousetrap, the game. It's like the marbles rolling down and it's clicking and clanking. All these things have to execute properly, domino style, in order for this payoff here.
Yeah, and it all has to be, each of these elements have to be set up without giving away where we're going.
And despite all of it, well, we'll talk about it later.
Well, it's a lot like a really well-written comedy play where
a noise is off, yeah.
A noise is off. It's exactly what I was thinking. So that at the end, when everything goes crazy and all the doors are slamming and closing, having all these interactions rapid fire, it's all set up. You don't know what's coming, but it all pays off little pieces. And I think it's just really well constructed like this. So Jake tries to explain, and then the guards bring in Geiger, holding the box containing the card. And Geiger's like, "You betrayed me! You turned me over to the Soulless Minions of Orthodoxy! Well, they won't discover the secret of my work!" Weyoun is intrigued, and opens the box and removes the baseball card. So there are secrets after all. There shouldn't be any secrets between friends, Jake, and I do want you to be my friend. Jake then comes up with a new plan. He tells the truth. Again, such a great payoff, and Sirach does a great job with this. He says, we weren't supposed to divulge this, but you've left us no choice. We're working for Starfleet Intelligence. We've been investigating the man whose picture you're holding in your hand right now. Until yesterday, that man, a one Willie Mays, did not exist in historical documents. Then, in the blink of an eye, that card appeared on the station. And at the same moment, a bust of Willie Mays appeared in the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. There's only one explanation. We suspect this man is from the future.
Big swing.
So great.
Big swing.
It's a big swing, but it's funny, and it sort of tracks, and it's also like great storytelling from Jake, who we know is a storyteller.
You know what else is a big swing, Keith?
Sarcophagus!
I'm going to put both your baseball card and the sarcophagus in the folder, and somehow you have to work them into the splash this week.
Great, for no one will understand.
Yeah, you're right.
All right. These are the appropriate uses of AI right here.
And only these.
And only these. So he finishes his story, and Weyoun smirks. He says, I believe you. You do? Yes, that is, I believe, your first story. That you're two innocent boys trying to give a present to Captain Sisko. They explain that Geiger is trying to become immortal, and Weyoun is delighted. Really? I have a background in, shall we say, creative genetics. I'd be most interested in hearing your theories. Jake and Nog leave, but not before Weyoun gives them the baseball card. Bye, Jen. Have a good day at work.
Bye, Jen.
And we finish under Sisko's voiceover. We hear clips of all the staff enjoying the things Jake and Nog did for them. Sisko says, Captain's log, stardate, whatever. 2 days ago, this station felt like a tomb. I've never seen a sarcophagus, where you might find. Yeah. I've never seen so many of the crews depressed at the same time. But for some reason, it now seems as though a new spirit has swept through the station, as if someone had opened a door and let a gust of fresh air blow through a musty old house. Why this is happening is frankly a mystery to me. After all, nothing has changed. But maybe the explanation is as simple as something my father taught me a long time ago. Even in the darkest moments, you can always find something that'll make you smile. And we see everybody cheered up because Jake and Nog did them all favors. The card is delivered, and Sisko shakes Nog's hand and hugs Jake warmly. And I find it incredibly moving, that last little beat there. And so, the Rube Gold, the mousetrap game, the dominoes have all completed, and we only have one more thing to do. Okay, Mike, let's talk best moment.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you could throw a wormhole up and say any of when Jake and Nog are poking around and trying to do all the fetch questy stuff, that someone probably would have clocked a suspicion and try to get to the bottom of what's going on, but I had it. Oh, I think the writing in general, but for me is for some reason I really LOL'd when we first hear about the sarcophagus and Jake and Nog have that moment where they're like, oh yeah, he's crazy. I mean, it's just crazy, so on the nose, and they so jump to the end of where you think the plot's going to be, which is going to be the whole episode, and then we find out that it's all BS. It made me laugh. I thought it perfectly encapsulated their incredible chemistry, which, as much as their friendship has grown over the seasons, so has their chemistry as actors. I think it's so good. Yeah. It's so funny. Excellent delivery of an excellent script. That's my favorite scene.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm so torn with this because, I think the payoff at the very end, where we have the sweet moment where we realize that, like, they're helping the entire vibe of the entire station in this very dark time. I find it very moving. But for me, I think nothing will be more delicious than watching Weyoun interrogate them. And
great scene.
And like the big swing and the lie, and then he realizes the lie. It's just Jeffrey Combs' work in this episode, I think, is just flawless. It's just so much fun. And, to be in the same episode when you have Louise Fletcher and Jeffrey Combs, if only we had Andrew Robinson, because you have three people who are so interesting and so compelling, they could just read the phone book. Mm-hmm. And it would be like, I would sit there and watch them do the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, super fun. I just thought it was really fun. I love the twist. I love the escalation. And I love that all fits together. But we'll talk about that in this thing.
You get some stem bolts. Hell yeah, they are self-sealing. Here are some stem bolts for you.
Yeah, it's a lighthearted romp. I think they do yeoman's work in that first scene, sort of setting up where we are, which then, and that things are serious and people are depressed and there's grand things happening, scary times ahead. They set that up enough so that we can enjoy the rest of our little romp, right? And it's basically up front saying, hey, look, yes, ish is going down, but we're gonna have a little fun, a couple laughs along the way. We're gonna have a good episode about kind of finding the little bits of light, the little bits of appreciation. I mean, is it not prescient? I mean, yes. My wife and I were talking this morning. Forget what side of the fence you sit on politically, right? It's pretty much down the middle, and so a lot of people are gonna not like the way it turns out, right? Now, I'm not.
Does it feel like we're in that moment in real life right now?
Yeah.
You're damn right it does.
Well, look, that's what I was saying. We were on the porch talking about, hey, we better put clothes on this house before the election, because who knows how that's going to turn out and what the result of such will be. And 100%. Yet, my dog sat at the front door waiting for me to take her out today, and that was awesome because we've been working really hard to get her to like sit when she comes back.
Yeah.
And it's the little moments, right? It's the saying goodbye to your wife before she goes to work. It's finding, if you can't find moments of appreciation, and not just appreciation, but of maybe kindness and doing a kindness, paying it forward, then what's the point of any of it, right? Yes, there is stress and anxiety and despair, and I think that's kind of what the episode is saying. And the baseball analogy is awesome because it's a through line we've seen from the beginning. And what really speaks, Keith, I'll let you expound on sort of threading the needle, and the writing has to be perfect to make that Rube Goldberg payoff work at the end. But the performances had to be such that we allow for the convenience of, would Nog go along with this all the way down into the deepest bowels of Weyoun and the freaking Dominion?
Well, he didn't have a choice in the Weyoun part.
But would he have let it get that far? All of that
Mike,
is forgiven.
You're saying, would I ever go way far down the well to help out a buddy on a Star Trek podcast you've devoted 3/4 of your life to at this point?
Yeah. That's basically what I'm saying, and it works because I buy that they're that close.
Yeah.
And if they weren't, right, or if this was season 2 and they were still sitting in the rafters, I'd be like, I don't know if I buy that. I don't know if he would go along with that. Or I don't know if Jake would go along with that, right? But, they've even allowed for Jake, they're in that part of their lives where he's able to say to his dad, I mean, the excuse he used to his dad was, we were wasted. Right? That's he allowed for that. And to get in that trouble, or to risk that sort of trouble to do a solid for your dad, let me tell you, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast before. I think I have, but I'll bring it up again. And as weird as this might be, sometimes when I'm feeling away and I'm just feeling really like there's no accountability or justice or anything, I'll watch 2 types of videos on YouTube. One is, it's called instant karma, and it's just people like running a red light and then the police catching them right away, right? Yeah, so that's one subset of videos to watch. And the other is kids who find out that their stepdad or their dad sold their favorite car or something when they to help pay for them when they were kids, or to help buy the house or do whatever. And then it's kids who have done well in their lives, and then they're going back in time. They bought their dad's old car and they're showing it to him.
Totally.
Videos like that, because it I don't know what itch it scratches in me, but it fills me with some sort of joy. And this episode is that. It is that.
Yes,
and
it absolutely is.
I buy why Jake would do it. I buy why Ben deserves it. And the moment at the end, like you said, where he just shakes Nog's hand and he hugs Jake, and there's no words need to be said. We were talking about this before we aired today, Keith, about how sometimes when you have the opportunity in life to help somebody out, a friend, family member, words aren't necessary, right? You help them because who they are. They don't need to ask, and you don't have to get the adulation for it. And they perfectly captured that at the end. I mean, is it a light episode as far as stakes and ramifications? Yes. Yeah. But let's not forget the Kai Winn of it. Let's not forget the table setting for the bigger picture. It's able to handle both those things. The weight of the entire galaxy and, a friend helping out a friend and a son giving his dad a baseball card. All together with a crazy great Freak of the Week villain guy, right? And Weyouning. I don't know what's not to love, right? And I generally like the bigger stakes, but I love this episode. I'm going to go an A. I'm going to give it 93 self-sealing stem bolts. Can't ask for much more.
Yeah. I think you really put it well, tying it to where we are right now, right? Like on the precipice of possible disaster, right? And I think there's a lot of different ways where we as a world are there. Because who knows what's going to happen in the Middle East tomorrow or an hour from now.
Yeah, I didn't even frame that.
Yeah, I mean that, talk about the precipice, right? And by the time this goes out,
who knows?
And with this election, like however it goes, I think would be naive to think there's not going to be violence, and it's scary, and it's sort of all there. And at the same time, I was going to say antidote. There is no antidote. But the thing that we can add to this is the kindness, are the gestures, are the expressions of love, verbally or otherwise. And Jake's expression of love, not just getting the card, but by sacrificing his time and his effort, calling in favors, letting his father shout at him, as opposed to bailing, to really have this moment for his dad. And I think it's really sweet and it's beautiful, but it also really it really makes clear that, you push a pebble off down a mountain, it's going to build up steam. It creates momentum, and you don't know, well, you cheered everybody up. Well, they probably went and, because they were feeling better, went and cheered somebody else up.
Pay it forward,
and
right?
when we talk about the consequences of it for the entire station, small actions can have giant consequences, both negative and positive. And I think that's really, it's a beautiful message. It really is. For the silly episode, I think it has an absolutely beautiful and incredibly Star Trek message, and I freaking love that part of it. The other thing that makes this episode unique is, you talked about it doesn't have huge stakes. Well, it actually does. It has gigantic stakes, but it's in the B story. So the A and B story in this episode are flipped, because usually we have the serious story as the A story, and then we have a side plot that's lighter. And this is the opposite. Our A story, our main plot, is the light story, but we have a very serious B story. And I think it's just very, very interesting. And I think Ronald D. Moore constructed this perfectly. I see no holes. I see no flaws. This whole thing is incredibly deftly handled. And Dorn, for the first thing he's ever directed, what a job putting all of this together. And it's far more intricate than you think it is, because you think it's a fetch quest. Well, it's a fetch quest conspiracy designed to look like something that it's not. and again, it all pays off. It pays off like noises off. And
Yeah, as a director,
You know-
I think your aims are either to really have a such a specific take or style that it's instantly recognizable, or you don't recognize or see the direction at all.
yeah,
Get
and
out
it
of the
just-
way, you know.
It spins and spins, and so the final act is very surprising.
Mhm.
Like, we don't think these two stories are going to intersect. We don't think these consequences for the whole station in a positive way are going to happen. It's just, I think it's masterfully done.
I also,
And I think
I'm sorry, I always interrupt you. I find myself, but you
that's what a podcast is.
You know what? I understand why we love Jeffrey Combs as Weyoun, but I think why I
Yeah.
love Weyoun also, and what's really awesome about him is that he himself is not particularly, the Vorta is not particularly a bad guy, right? He is not a threat per se, right? He's never coming with
Right.
weapons, but what he represents and who he represents is so enormous, right?
Yeah.
And that we are forced to just allow him on the station to go as he pleases and to have these enclaves must be just absolutely terrifying and maddening for Ben and for Starfleet and such. And so that's really, there's so much good fodder there.
But he's, in a lot of ways, he's like a Christoph Waltz character,
Mm-hmm.
where he's working for the Nazis
Right.
and he's having fun.
Yeah, it's every time
He's-
Putin
he's in-
goes to the G6 or or whatever, and he's talking, and it's like, we don't like this guy. We don't like what he's sitting on, right? And yet we have to just, there's
there's something
decorum.
extra evil about somebody representing evil and is delighted.
Yeah.
He's having a blast.
Mhm.
He's not bothered by any of this. This whole thing is a game to him, and he is just like, he's just delighted. And I think that is all the more sinister because of that. I also feel what a great penultimate episode. Right? Next episode, season finale.
Wow.
The title is Call to Arms.
Yikes.
So, I don't think it's much of a spoiler to say some shit's gonna go down.
Mhm.
And so,
Heading into the penultimate season.
heading into the penultimate season. So, to have this light souffle, which rises precisely timed, while also setting up some doom, setting up some dread, really setting the table for what's going to happen next. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a sorbet. It's a sorbet before the final course.
Yeah, exactly. It's a sorbet souffle, which probably sounds terrible mixed, but it's both of those things. I love this episode. I think it's calling it a masterpiece is probably overstepping, but I think it is just so satisfying and so delightful. I watched it 3 times in prep for this, and every time it comes up, and as a kid who loved sports cards, it really touches right in there.
Listen, we talk about this all the time. Separate kind of thought. Yes. So Sweeney Todd is a masterpiece, and it's a masterpiece in its construction, its performance. It's 3 hours long. There's a lot going on, but that's
Yeah.
not to say that a perfectly executed 90-minute show isn't. It's in its own right a masterpiece, right? It's perfectly.
Yeah.
I think perfectly executed is how I would describe this.
Yeah. So, love this episode. It gets 96 self-sealing stem bolts from me. In the world, only gets a 7.7, which puts it at 67 out of 173. I don't know why, but I imagine most of us here will feel similarly to how we do. But if you don't, let us know. If you do, let us know. Write it in the comments below, as well as what rank in Star Trek fandom has Mike earned at this point?
Because then we got to change my thing.
We got to change your thing.
Oh my God, Keith, that means there's only one more week of this setup. That means you've got to do the crazy thing of re-envisioning what this all looks like for with season 6.
The whole thing, you're going to get some pips and pops, quite literally.
Yeah, okay.
Perhaps, based on your rank. Yeah, so for the patrons out there, you know, Mike and I are going to talk and figure out schedule-wise if it's possible, because even if we have to wait an extra week to do it,
Wanna watch
we
the
need
season
to
finale?
do next episode justice.
Okay.
So we will have to find a way to do that together and do it up, because it's the season finale of season 5. I know Mike is crazy super busy, so we might have to shift a couple of days here or there to make it happen. And I think it'll be worth it. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, give us a like, give us a subscribe. If you're listening to the podcast version of this, please leave us a rating and reviews, especially in Apple Podcasts, to make the algorithm like us. You know, I'd really like to be liked by the algorithm. And next week, kids, it's called Arms. Here we go. Yeah. So thanks for watching. Till then, this has been Keith and Mike. Watch Deep Space Nine. Thank you for watching K&M Entertainment. If you enjoyed our particular brand of nonsense, please like and subscribe. Or become one of our patrons at patreon.com/KNM. Mike, I have here a Phil Simms autographed... let me start again. That was terrible.
It's that or Diddy Lube.
No.